Okay, my dear students, in chapter 11 we were discussing the valuation of long-term securities. We have already discussed the valuation of bonds, valuation of preferred share, and now today we are going to discuss the valuation of common stocks. The simple concept of the valuation of any given security is that you are supposed to find out the present value of the cash flows that is associated with the given security. Like in case of bond, the expected cash flows were in shape of interest payment, and similarly in case of preferred share, these cash flows were in shape of the fixed dividend. While in common stock, we receive the dividend in return if we purchase our shares, and this dividend depend on the net income also and the board of director decision. So the expected cash flows associated with a common share is a dividend, and finding out the present value of this expected dividend means the valuation of the common stock. So you are supposed to convert this stream of returns to a value for the security. For this purpose, you must discount this stream at your required rate of return, which we call the required rate of return on equity. So the stream of expected returns are in shape of the cash flows, in shape of the dividends, earnings, and capital gain. For capital gain, we mean if you purchase a security for 3 years, by security I mean a common share. If you purchase a common share for a 3 year and you are going to sell out after the 3 year, so then you check out the difference between the price of the purchase and sale price. If it is high, so it means you have gained a capital. If it is less, then it means that you have capital loss. Another important thing is the time pattern. The cash flows received at the first year, then if it received at the second year, so we are supposed to discount it accordingly. Like if you receive the cash flow, the dividend at the end of the first year, so you are supposed to discount it at the end of the first year, and similarly if you receive the cash flow at the end of the second year, then you are supposed to discount it at the end of the second year. The third important factor is the growth rate, which we will discuss early in the early stage. The required rate of return, as it's earlier discussed, that there are three components to determine the required rate of return. One is the risk-free, the opportunity cost. The second one is the inflation rate, and the third one is the risk associated with the given security. So combination of this, if you are investing in a security in a common stock, you will invest if the common stock is compensating you in terms of inflation and in terms of the risk associated with the common share, and similarly the risk free or the opportunity cost. So the investment decision is that if the estimated value of a given security is greater than the market price, means if the worth of a security is 10 while it is available in a market on rupees 12, so it means that it is overpriced in the market, so then you're supposed to buy it. Now if the value of the security is 10, okay, the investment decision process, it estimates the value of the security based on the expected cash flows and your required rate of return. We compare the intrinsic value or the worth of the share with the market price, and the decision criteria is if the estimated value means the present value associated with the common stock. If it is greater than the market price, then we are supposed to buy it, and similarly if the expected value or the estimated value is less than the market price, then we are supposed to not to buy it. This decisions is criteria is framed according to the wish of the investors. Like in first case, you can see that if the worth of a security is 10 while the market price is 8, means it is undervalued in the market, so you are expecting that this price will increase. That is why you are going to buy it, and vice versa. Now valuation of bonds are comparatively easy. than the stock. The reason for this is that in case of bond, you are very much sure about the expected cash flows. Like if you purchase a bond, you receive interest. This interest is a fix on the principal amount of the bond face value. So here you are very much clear about the expected cash flows. That is why valuation of bonds are comparatively easy to the valuation of common stock. In case of common stock, you don't know how much cash you will receive, because the dividend is not certain. It depends on the net income of the business and even the board of director decisions also. So the second one, these are the two factors, that interest payment plus even the principal amount is also known to you in valuation of bond, while in case of common stock you don't know how much price you will receive when you are going to sell out the share. So there are two different approaches to find out the valuation of common stock. The one is called the discounted cash flows valuation approach, and the second one is called the relative valuation technique. In discounted cash flow, we simply find out the present value of some cash flows, including the dividend, operating cash flows, and free cash flow. We are going to discuss it in upcoming slides. While in the relative valuation technique, these values are estimated based on its price relative to the significant variable such as earnings, cash flows, book values, or sales. This is also the second part of the today presentation, which we are going to discuss. So my dear, under the umbrella of the discounted cash flows, we have three different techniques. One is the present value of dividend, which we call a dividend discount model, and the second one is the present value of operating cash flow. The third one is the present value of free cash flow. The second technique is relative technique, where we will cover the price earning ratio and price to cash flows ratio, and the third one is the price to book value ratio, and the fourth one is price to sales ratio. So let us start from the first technique, that is the dividend discounted cash flows approach. In this case, we measure the cash flows in shape of the dividend, and then we discount it on the cost of equity, or we can call it the required rate of return on equity. Similarly, operating cash flows are discounted by the weighted average cost of capital, because in operating cash flow there is the claim of the every investor. By every investor, I mean the person who pay you a debt, even the means the who purchase the bonds of a company, and by investor I mean those who purchase the shares of the company. And even if somebody has purchased the preferred share of a company, all the three investors are supposed to claim the operating cash flows. That is why it is discounted on the weighted average cost of capital. The third one is the free cash flow to equity. By this we mean when we deduct the claim of the preferred shareholder and even the bond holder, so we are only left with the equity holder investment. So that is why it will only be discounted on the cost of equity or the required rate of return on equity. Dividend discount model depend on the growth rate. We will discuss it in early slides. So the very first approach is to discuss the valuation of common stock by using the discount model. The discounted cash flows approaches are depend on some factors, that is the rate of growth and duration of the growth of the cash flows, the estimate of the discount rate. So this is the formula of the present value of cash flows. You can see that it is the summation of the cash flows associated with the common stock, and it will be discounted on the required rate of return on equity. You can see by V means value of stock, N means the number of year, the life of the asset, CF means the cash flows, which in this case are dividends, and K is the discount rate of return on the equity. So my dear, this is the simple formula of the dividend discount model. This formula is in case of the given time period. For example, if you are purchasing a common stock for a 2 year only, so you will receive the dividend at the end of the first year, and then you will receive the dividend at the end of the second year, and similarly then you will receive the share price when once you sell out the share, you will receive the sale price of the common stock at the end of the second year. So we are supposed to discount the dividend 1 at the first year and then second at the second year, and similarly the share price of the common stock which we receive at the end of the second year. So my dear, if you are going to purchase a common stock forever, it means you are not going to sell it, so you don't receive any sale price at the end of the at the end of the security. So if you keep it with yourself for a long period or even forever, so it means that you will discount the dividend 1, 2, 3 up to the infinity. So here in this case we don't have the P3 or P4 or P2 like in this formula in early stage, like we have written this. In second case you can see that we are ignoring this because we are not going to sell out this common share. Now the problem create here is that we cannot calculate the present value of the expected cash flow in case of infinity because by using the perpetuity, because in perpetuity, as we used in the preferred share, in perpetuity one of the condition is that the stream of cash flow should be constant, should be same. So in this case, in case of valuation of common stock, as I have already discussed, that dividend are uncertain, these cash flows are uncertain, so we cannot use the concept of the perpetuity. For this purpose it was criticized, and then the Mr. Gordon gave the concept of the growth model. So he gave the concept of the constant growth model, or we can also call it a zero growth dividend model or a constant dividend model. The second one is the constant growth dividend model, and the third one is the phase growth dividend model. First he gave the concept of the constant dividend model or a zero growth dividend model, but it was criticized that how could a company sustain a constant dividend for a long period. So that is why he then gave the second concept where he assumed that dividend will grow at a constant rate. It was also then criticized that how could a company constantly with a fixed rate can grow a dividend, because there is a concept of a business life cycle. When the business life cycle is going upward, the dividends are high. When the business cycle is going downward, so then the dividend will decrease. So this is why he gave the concept of the then phase growth dividend model. Let us discuss first of all the constant growth constant dividend model or the zero growth dividend model. In this concept, Mr. Gordon assumed that yes, if the dividends are constant, then we can find out the intrinsic value of the common stock in both cases. In both cases, I mean in a given time period, and for if you are purchasing a common stock forever. By given time period, I mean if you are purchasing the common stock for 2 years, 3 years, or 4 years, the dividend, if it is constant, you can use the concept of the NVT and find out the present value of the expected cash flows. Similarly, if the dividend is constant, you can use the perpetuity concept if you are purchasing a common stock forever. So in this case, the stream of cash flows are same. There is no growth in the dividend, so valuation is similar to preferred share. In this case, today dividend is equal to the next dividend, and then the D1 is equal to D2 till the infinity. There is no growth in the dividend. So in case of given time period, we will repeat the formula. Now this is a dividend 1, this is dividend 2, and this is dividend 3. As this dividend are same, so we can simply write out here the D and D and D. Otherwise this is the D1, D2, D3, so these are same. That is why I didn't write here 1, 2, 3. And the first dividend will be discounted at the first year, and then the second year, the third will be discounted at the third year, and on the third year, if you are going to sell out this share, so then you will receive the P3. P3 means the price of the common share at the end of the third year. So in case of if you are purchasing this share forever, so then we can use the concept of the perpetuity because the dividend is constant and forever. So it and the it fill out the conditions of the perpetuity. We can take an example, like for example, let me start it from the beginning. Look at, my dear, if the D naught is 5 and these are, if these are similar, there is no growth rate, the growth rate is 0, and the expected required rate of return on equity is 12. So it means that your first dividend will be 5, and even your second dividend will be also 5, and third and fourth and 5. So there is no growth, the dividend will remain constant. And suppose if the P3 is, let's suppose the P3 is 30. So how to find out the present value of a common stock? In this case, you are supposed to find out the present value of the cash flow 1, the expected required rate of return is 12%, so we find out the present value. We can use the present value function also. The video is available on my channel, but in this case I'm doing it in a simple way that to make it easy for you people. So we have found out the discounted value of the given cash flows, and now we are supposed to sum out this present value. Now this is the intrinsic value or the expected value of the cash flows. And similarly, in case of forever, we can use the concept of the perpetuity. And the perpetuity concept is that you divide dividend by the required rate of return. So this is the value of the common stock in case of the, if you are purchasing a common stock forever. Hopefully you got it. No, my dear, the criticism on this concept, on this model was that how could a dividend remain constant forever? So it was criticized, and then the Mr. Gordon gave the concept of the constant growth dividend model, that in this case it assumed that the dividend will grow, it will not remain constant, but it will increase by a constant rate. So here it means that your current dividend, the next dividend 1 will be the growth in a given growth in the current dividend, and similarly your D2 will be the increase in D1 by the given growth rate. So this way you can find out the dividend 1, dividend 2 and dividend 3. So let's suppose, okay, this is the let me do it in an Excel. For example, the growth rate is 3%. Now in this case, my dear, you can see that the first dividend is 5, the second dividend, so this is the current dividend, so your D1 will be the increase, 3% increase in the current dividend. So we can find out like this way, 1 plus the growth rate is 3%. So this is your dividend 1. Now the second dividend at the end of the second year is the D1, means the 3% growth in the D1. So D1 will increase by 3%. And similarly, you can see that the D3 will be 3% increase in the D2. So this way you find out the dividend 1, 2, 3. And let's suppose if the price of the common stock is 30 at the end of the third year, you can find out the present value of the expected cash flows. Let me make it constant. So my dear, this is how you find out the present value of the cash flows, and we can, once we add it, so the present value is the 34. You see that this time the present value of cash flow is greater than the last one case, because in this case dividend increased by each year. And the same questions I have solved it on the slides also. You can see that the growth rate is 3%, D1 is equal to 5.15, and D2 is equal to 5.30, and similarly 5.46, this is the D3, and find out the present value of the expected cash flows. Okay my dear, in case of the infinity, now if you are going to purchase the common stock for forever, now in this case you cannot use the concept of the perpetuity, because one of the condition in the perpetuity is that the cash flow will remain constant and forever. So in this case cash flows will not remain constant. You can see that the D1 was 5 and the D1 was increasing, and then D2 was the more in high, the D3 was the then more high than the D2. So in this case we cannot use the concept of the perpetuity. Okay, in simple word we can say that this is the D1, the not 1 plus G. Now this is the D2. You can use this method also. So make it simplify. If you are going to purchase a common stock for forever, so the formula for the common stock valuation, if there is a constant growth, this is the formula of the valuation of common stock forever. If the dividend is growing at the constant rate. Okay, the assumption of the constant growth dividend model is that one of the assumption is that the dividend will grow at a constant rate. The second one is that this constant growth rate will continue for an infinite time period, and the third one is that the required rate of return should be always greater than the growth rate. If the required rate of return is less than the growth rate, your valuation of common stock will then answer in minus. It means that your worth of the common stock will be in negative. Another one is that the expected return from the equity, that is KE, required return on equity, should be greater than the expected growth rate. So this is my dear the example of the constant growth dividend model if you are going to purchase a common stock forever. We can see that the current dividend is 5, the expected growth rate is 3%, and the required return is 12%. Here I didn't give the value of the P3 or P4 because we are not going to sell out it. So in this case the formula is, first of all you find out the D1, that is 3% growth in the dividend, or you can write in this way, or in the last slide we write here the D1, because this is equal to the D1. If you can see here I wrote here D1, and D1 is equal to D0 1 plus G. So D1 divided by KE minus G. So this is the present value of the expected cash flows if the common stock is purchased forever and if the growth rate forever is constant. You can simply find out in here we can see that this is the D1 divided by 12% KE minus G. So the valuation of common stock forever is 57.22. Now further you will compare it with the market value and then decide as the criteria of decision is already discussed in early slides. Okay my dear, no, the problem was that it was also criticized, the second method, that how could a dividend grow at a constant rate and forever, because as I earlier discussed, that business life cycle have different phases: growth stage, prosperity stage, and decline stage, and in all these stages the expected growth in the dividend could not remain constant forever, or even for a big even for a large period. So in this case, a dividend will grow at different rate, and we will learn how to find out the intrinsic value of cash flows if dividends grow at different rates. So my dear, in this case, I have developed some phases. Like in first 3 years, the current dividend is 2, the required return is 14%. In first 3 year, the growth rate is expected, that is 25%, and another 3 year, that is from 4 to 6th year, the dividend is expected to increase by 20%, and similarly in next from 7 to 9 year, the expected growth in dividend is 15%, and onward 10 onward, the expected growth rate is 9%. So how to find out the present value of the cash flows in this case? My dear, the concept is very similar to the last slide. Only difference is that the growth rate will change. In early method, the dividend was increasing, but at a constant rate. So in this method, we will use the different growth rate at different time period. So this is the formula. I will try to make it easy for you while using the MS Excel sheet. Okay, my dear, let me delete this one. Okay, my dear, now the question was that the current value of dividend is 2. Okay, the question was the current value of the dividend is 2 and the growth rate is 25% in the first 3 years. You can see that for first 3 years I have considered the growth rate, that is 25%, and that for next 3 years 4, 5, 6, the growth rate is 20%, and for the 7, 8, 9, this 3 year the growth rate is 15%, and then 10 and onward the growth rate is 9%. So you are supposed to find out the dividend 1, which is similar to the previous concept. Your D1 is the 25% increase in the current dividend. Okay, sorry, I forgot to multiply it. What is the issue here? Oh, sorry. Okay, so the dividend 1 is the 25% increase in dividend 2, and now the second one is that the dividend 1 will increase by 25%. Let me adjust it. So your dividend is increasing by 25%. In third year again it is increasing by 25%. Now in fourth year your this D3 will increase by the 20%. Now you can see that the D3 is increasing by the 20%. So the concept is same, only the difference is that the growth rate will not remain constant. So that is why dividend keep changes. So my dear, this is the cash flows at the end of the first year, and the second year, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And now the last one is that the dividend will increase by 9% and forever. So one of the simple concept is that you start the finding out the dividend of 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th by increasing this dividend by 9%, and then again 9%, then 9%, 9%. So this is a long process. In early slide we learned that you can find out the present value of the expected cash flows if the dividend is increasing at a constant rate. So in this case, now the dividend is increasing by 9% forever. We can use this formula to find out the present value of all those expected cash flows which are increasing by increasing by 9% and forever. So by using this formula, we will not find out only the present value of the cash flows after the 10 year, but also we will be able to find out the present value of all those expected cash flows. Like for example, if I'm using this formula, so now the current dividend is 10 and the required rate of return is 14%. The expected growth now the onward is 9%. Okay, so I have used this formula, the D1 KE minus C. Okay, this is the current dividend. I'm supposed to find out the dividend of the next year. The next expected dividend is increase by 9%, and then I found out the, here I'm supposed to multiply it. Okay, I find out that this dividend will increase by the 9% and then discount it on the formula by KE minus G. So where is the issue? Okay, I didn't select the dividend, I guess. Okay, oh no, it's fine. So this value of this is the value of all those present value of all those expected cash flows which will continue onward. So in other words, I can say that this is the present value at the end of so this is the present value at the end of the 9th year of all those expected cash flows which are supposed to continue onward. So my dear, now we have the expected cash flows at the end of the first year, second year, third year, fourth year, 9th year, and the present value of the all expected cash flows at the end at the 10th year. We can say that this is the present value of 10th year, or in other words, we can say that this is the present value at the end of the 9th year of all those expected cash flows which we were going to receive at the rate of 9%. So now we are supposed to find out the present value to discount the cash flows. Now 1 plus the required return is 14%. Okay, sorry, I was supposed to I have to give a proper address. That is the required return is 14%. Now this is the formula of the present value of the expected cash flows at the end of the first year. Similarly, if I drag it, you can see that this is the present value of the D3 at the end of the third year, and this is the present value of the cash flows at the end of the 9th year. And the one thing is different from the other, that is that this is the present value of the expected those cash flows, present value at the 10th year, or even we can say that this is the end year of the ninth, the present value of the 10th, or we can say that the end of the ninth. So we are supposed to find out the present value of this expected cash flows as well, because we are going to decide today whether we are supposed to buy it or not. So we have discounted this present value at the at the today period, and similarly we find out the present value of the D2 at today period. So this is the present value at the end of the ninth year. So we are also going to discount this cash flow till the today. So we are supposed to find out the present value of this cash flows also. So this is the end of the ninth year, that's why I'm putting here the value 9. Now this is the present value of those cash flows which we are going to receive 10 onward. So now sum up it. Now this is the final intrinsic value of the common stock. So again, you can compare it with the market price and then decide whether you are going to purchase it or you are not going to purchase it. Hopefully you got this point. The same questions is repeated here over here, and I have tried to explain it here also. You can take help from the Excel sheet, and even you can take help from the slide also. So this is, my dear, the valuation of common stock by using the dividend discount model. In early video we are going to discuss out how to find out the intrinsic value of the cash flows by using the operating cash flows approach. Thank you, my dear.